Now, I will say this about the win. It was super ugly, like you said. We uh, Dolphins have kind of raised the bar to the point where ugly wins like that leave me feeling more dissatisfied than satisfied. You know, they got the win, but they did not play well doing it. So we're gonna get into all that. What were your initial reactions on the game, Anthony?
So I've been thinking about this, and the one thing I really wanted to point out is how great it feels like that our team is in a position where we were down 14 to nothing, and it didn't feel to me like we were out of it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Like in the past,
yeah.
14 to nothing, this team is not
Oh, it was
like you
over.
may as well just go mow the lawn or something because the game's over, right?
Mhm.
But at 14 nothing, the way we were playing, we just missed. I mean, Tua just missed Tyreek on two bombs already at that point. Like, I just knew it was a matter of time before they connected and got us right back in the game. And then uh, defense, defense. Steve
Jesus.
talked last week about not being sure about this defense. What are we going to see out of the defense? And the defense kind of kept us in this one. Not kind of. The defense did keep us in this
Yeah.
one. And yeah, ultimately we get the win because of them.
Steve, what are your initial thoughts on the game? How'd you feel coming away from it?
Um, I had watched it from my phone because there was a baptism. So it was a car ride home that I really got to think about this game. And to be honest, I was a little bit more optimistic than I thought I was going to be because there was times when the team could have just given up like easily, and they didn't. They went into halftime down 17-7, came out, forced good fumble in the third quarter and came up with an 80-yard bomb to Tyreek to really get the game a little closer and the momentum swing going. There was a lot of big plays on defense with Calais Campbell. So as I was thinking, I was like, man, there's some players that really never gave up on that. And it was a good game to actually watch.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you're a non-fan of either team, that game had to have been super exciting for you. But
No, yeah,
as,
but
as a
as
fan,
yeah, there
as
was
a fan, I was
players.
ready to throw myself off of my balcony out here.
There was players that I was interested in watching because for the whole offseason, the big question mark was defensive tackle. And there's now an explanation point at that position. It's not a question mark anymore because Calais Campbell was all over that football. I mean,
Yeah.
if he wasn't in Trevor Lawrence's face, his hand was up in the air when the ball was getting thrown. Like he was chasing down running backs 10 yards down the field, even if he wasn't getting there. Like first, he was constantly all over the field. I constantly saw his number.
He looks like a dude who's 10 years younger than he actually is,
Well,
too.
He played great.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Josh, what do you think, man? What were your initial thoughts?
I mean, Jesus, I have so much to say about this game, which I'll hold off for later. I don't want to blow through all my stats and whatnot, but I think honestly, this boils down to what Anthony and Steve said. I think we found a way to gut this out versus a very underrated Jags team, right? I mean, top 5, top 7 type defense with two insanely good defensive ends that are true game wreck. I mean, they led the league in combined total sacks last year. So we're not going up against.
They're probably the two best defensive edge rushers in the NFL right now.
I mean, yeah. And if they're not, they're 2. If they're not 1, they're 2, right? So we're not going up against the Jacksonville from 5, 7, 10 years ago, right?
Right.
Where it's a high school team, essentially. I think this is a game where even as early as 3 years ago, we lose. And we lose handedly because the team gives up. The coaching staff overcoaches this game. We have Josh Boyer, for example, throwing the kitchen sink, trying to slow down Trevor and Travis Etienne, and we lose this game by like 30 points. And I just absolutely love the grit. I love the reports of Tua shutting down the coach's talk during halftime to call out Tyreek Hill, to call out Jalen Waddle, to call out the players that are the stars of this team, the Ramseys, to tell them to essentially, and pardon my French, get their head out of their ass.
Yeah.
And there's a stark difference from the product that this team put on the field in the first half versus what they did in the second. And I'll tell you what, man, it gives me hope.
If I could add to that, I mean, that play in the start of the fourth quarter when Ramsey came across from sideline to sideline and put his shoulder right into ATN, that wasn't happening unless Tua got into them at some point in the halftime. No. I mean, he ran 50, 60 yards just to get a tackle 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage. It was an incredible play. Steve. Incredible
great
play.
Point. And honestly, like, I saw the whole defense kind of swarming. I didn't stop and look at it until the next day and see that was Ramsey that was in pursuit of that play.
Oh yeah,
they all were
from the start.
They all were, but like Ramsey was in pursuit that entire time and chased that play down. That's not something we've really come accustomed to seeing from Jalen Ramsey.
No, and keep in mind, guys, Jalen Ramsey is coming off of not playing in the preseason, not practicing hardly any in the preseason, and nursing an injury and on a snap count. And I think that plays into a lot of our initial. Well, Ramsey played like dog poop, right?
Yeah,
he did not have it. I mean, he was rusty. He was probably out of football shape. I mean, there's so much that goes into what some of the things we were. Now there are some bad, and I'm sure we'll get to those. As soon as we can. But Ramsey really stepped up when we needed him to in that instance, for example. But I thought it was really cool. The defense held the Jags obviously to 0 points, 2 for 10 on third downs, and we held them to 0-1 on fourth downs. And I think, it's, like you said, stark difference from start to finish.
Let's get into it. The Dolphins start out this game. They go 3 and out on their first drive. They look out of sync offensively. They can't get anything going in the running game. Tua looks off kilter a little bit. Do we chalk this up to rust because they barely played in the preseason? Is that what we're chalking this up to, or was there something more to it than that? Was there something for example, did the Dolphins not take the Jaguars seriously enough? Did they come out and think, you know what, we're a better team than them. We can win this game easily. All I have to do is roll the ball out there. Like what led to such a slow start and them being so out of sync? Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Tua said as much. I mean, Tua has been enormously candid after this first game of the year. He even said, I don't remember if it was a sideline interview, post-game interview. I don't remember. But he even said, like, yeah, we kind of came out here and, we didn't give them the respect that we should have, and we got kicked in the mouth. So, yes, I think it was partly that. I think the play calling early on was play calling the whole game. I didn't like. It wasn't something that I love to see. We threw more passes behind the line of scrimmage than over the line of scrimmage, which is absurd. So I think it was rusty amongst the coaches, rusty amongst the players, and just unspirited in the first half. You don't see Tua get uppity like that very often. So for him to go into the halftime and have that huge, like, emotional, like, guys, get your head out of your butt sort of like speech is things were bad. Like, what he was seeing on the field wasn't what he expected to see on the field. And like, I mentioned earlier that, Tua missed Tyreek on 2 longer balls, but one of those, I just felt like Tyreek just died on the play. Like, he just stopped running it up the sideline. And then he looks up and he realizes that Tua threw it to him, and he's like, yep, I didn't run that out. So like, it was tough. It was really tough. And then, which is crazy because the beginning of the game I felt like had a lot of promise to it. I don't know if it was the first drive or the second drive. They finally got the ball moving a little bit before they kind of sputtered out. The first defensive drive, I mean, Josh and I were fanboying hard in the Discord chat on that first defensive drive because it was like a formidable 3 and out.
I mean, like that. It was awesome.
Yeah. I was like, that's it, game over, 75-0, let's go. But that obviously didn't happen. So, I think that led to a lot of disappointment too, after seeing kind of like, all right, yeah, this defense is going to be real good. And this offense, well, they're a little rusty, but they're going to get it together. And then not to see them get it together till it was probably the fourth quarter or something. Yeah. I mean, it was late.
Yeah.
That was
But tough. even then, I wouldn't consider, even in the fourth quarter, I wouldn't say the Dolphins, quote unquote, got it together. I think that they strung together. And I mean, some would say this is the definition of them getting it together, but you'd have to. they strung together some plays that allowed them to get into Jaguars territory and score some points, but they never felt offensively truly in sync the entire game to me.
Well, guys, remember that we have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and then a bunch of fourth stringers. I mean, we're missing OBJ, we're missing our third and fourth receivers. We're down a sixth receiver. So I think that also played a lot into the chemistry issues, if you will, the seeming chemistry issues, and the reason. Okay, well, when Tua gets through his second read, his next read isn't going to be River Craycraft because he's not there, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be OBJ because he's not there. It's going to be Durham Smythe, who can't catch a cold.
Ugh.
It's going to be Jonnu Smith, who I'm going to be completely candid with you, seemed like he did not want to be there.
He really did.
He really did. I mean, you look at the A-chain play, right, where he caught the ball and ran it like 30-something yards, 40 yards. He was one block away from scoring a 70-something yard touchdown. Guess who that last block was?
Yeah.
Jonnu Smith. And guess who just stopped running? Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so much that goes into this. And I think it's kind of crazy, right? We're all kind of down on this game. I don't mean to speak for all you guys, but I think we're all kind of down on this game, week one. Mm-hmm. We still almost double the Jags in offensive output, in yardage, in passing, in first downs, in everything. I think, if we can continue to show that output week in and week out, I think we will be in every single game.
I agree. I agree. Jonnu Smith, I just think this is a role he's not accustomed to playing. Like at one point, he came out of the backfield and was a lead blocker. Basically playing the fullback role. And I saw a look on his face like, man, I have never done this before in my entire life. I've never been asked to do this kind of thing before in my entire life. Mm-hmm. I think he'll adjust. I think he'll adapt to this new world order. But for the time being, I think everybody's adjusting. Everybody's kind of adjusting to one another, even though they're returning largely the same players that did last year.
Yeah.
It was a bad day for the tight end room.
Oh, yeah. Well, I will say this though: Julian Hill was probably the star of that unit. He blocked his ass off. He was in on two pass plays where he was down the field blocking and pushing the Jaguars defender, cornerback, or safety, whatever it was, into the stands. Yeah.
Julian Hill, man, if he can learn to catch, he's going to be a force in this league. All right, so Steve, Dolphins a little out of sync to start out with. Offensively, good.
I think there's a second. I think there's a second thing to look at here, and I saw this probably the end of preseason at some point in time. But we went from the youngest team just 2-3 years ago to now the oldest team in the league. Yeah. So I believe that also plays a little bit of a factor. And all last year, if you don't, I'm sure we're going to remember, but we started off slow, and at least half of them games we were second half teams. There was a bunch of them games where Mossert had 38 yards in the first half, and then by the end of the game he had 250. So there is a game like that. I forget what team he did it on, but there's certainly one of those
multiple.
Yeah. I just think that Mike McDaniel kind of thought that we were going to pick up right where we left off. I think he kind of got a little cute in the beginning, and he tried to do some towards the middle of the game. They really started doing what I predicted that they were going to do. They just did it with a different player. They started really checking down to the running back. A-Chain had 7 receptions for 76 yards, and that really helps out the offense when that starts moving. But in the first quarter, there was none of that. Maybe 1 or 2, but he really got it picked up in the second and third quarters, and that's kind of when we started to find our identity on offense. We got our first touchdown at the end of the second quarter. Third quarter, our defense came up big, push that momentum to the offense. We had that 80-yard bomb. Jalen Waddle had a 63-yard bomb right before that. So that those little dump passes to A-Chain was now starting to open up these bigger plays. And I just kind of think Mike McDaniel, wanted those big plays before doing the little things, and he kind of wasn't having his play call in the right order. I think everybody was kind of just excited to get out there, and everybody wanted to see a Hail Mary right off the bat. That's what you think of when you think of Miami Dolphins football right now. You have two of the biggest speedsters, and you got the whole stadium packed full of people screaming, wanting to see it. You want to give it to them. I get it, but you can't just come out and start shooting all your bullets in one drive. You gotta dump it down.
We're gonna go to the chat here. Last season, Tua hit his first target off, and this week he really had to go through his progressions to find someone. Is that more of a tribute to the Jags D, or were our wide receivers just slacking? I wouldn't say our wide receivers were slacking. And you know what? We're also not giving credit where credit's due. The Jaguars came out firing on all cylinders. Jaguars came out ready to play some football.
Yeah.
Look, they have a top 5, top 7 defense. They really genuinely do. Across the board.
Yeah. So I think to answer your question, Preston, I think personally that it was just the Dolphins didn't play a lot in the preseason, and they needed to adjust. They needed to adjust to what the Jaguars were hitting them with. Need to adjust to 2 edge rushers who are just absolute studs at their respective positions. Like Josh Hines Allen is an impressive human being, an impressive athlete, man.
Disgusting.
Yeah. And Trayvon Walker was the first pick in the draft for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Snicklefritz. Love the username, bro.
I want to let everyone know that this is one of my very good friends, and he is a massive Bills fan, so be careful.
All right. So how much do you contribute the slow start to being week 1 versus the Jags game plan? Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's 50-50 or 60-40, whatever you want to call it. With a little sprinkling of the Dolphins didn't come out of the gates ready to go. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I think the Jags defense played incredibly well. We talked in the preview show about how their new defensive style was bend with don't break. Tua leads the league in passing, but we only have 20 points. That's exactly what they did. They bent, but they didn't break, and their offense couldn't capitalize to keep them in the game, and our defense did. That was the only difference, right? Like that was the big difference in this game is
Javon Holland.
Javon Holland. Yeah, Javon Holland literally turned the game around with one play.
Yeah,
and the Jags never stood a chance after that. So I think the Jags deserve a lot of credit for the game plan. Everybody starts slow in week 1. We can't like just be like, yeah, it's a slow starting team. Like every team is a slow starting team. It's week 1. There's hardly any training camp anymore. They don't really hit anymore in practice. There's 3 preseason games. The starters play in like 1. So they haven't played. They haven't played real football in 9 months. So I
agree. It was a tough pill to swallow, especially when Jake Bailey. Shout out to Jake Bailey, by the way.
Jesus.
He's taken some fire from people on this channel, myself included. Yeah,
where is he there?
But you know what? We all concurred with Josh. We needed better from Jake Bailey, and Jake Bailey was amazing in this game.
I think potential game ball type game for Jake Bailey. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah,
I think Josh needs to write like an op-ed.
I already have. It got front page of the U.S. the Miami Herald.
I think it made the Sun Sentinel too.
I was wrong. No, the crow tasted delicious though, for what it's worth.
You weren't wrong to criticize him when you did, but after a game like that, I think we can put those criticisms aside for a week, at least a week. Yeah. What have you done for me lately, right? But yeah, Jake Bailey was awesome in this game. He pinned the Jaguars inside their own 5-yard line, and the Jaguars drove the ball right down the field and scored a touchdown against us. It was a demoralizing drive. They did it. they did it quickly too. They did it in just chunk plays. Travis Etienne running, off the edge for 20 yards.
Tank Bigsby,
Fucking
dude.
Tank
man.
Bigsby, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why they
They
put
got-
ETN in, I don't know, because Tank was crushing us.
yeah,
For how little yards they actually got, it seems like they kept getting them big chunk plays. And
Yeah.
their game style compared to their stats, it doesn't correlate for
I
me.
know.
Like I constantly see Bigsby hitting that big run that ATN eventually fumbled on, but he's the one that started that. That started on like the 4-yard line. And
Yeah.
they just moved from the 4-yard line all the way down to, it was like inside the 15, 20-yard line when he
Yeah.
broke it to Holland's ball punch.
I think
Yeah.
Tank had runs of 17 and 26 on that drive.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
nuts.
And
So-
you know what's hard though is as fans of this team, the team, of the Miami Dolphins, we obviously we look at what we think this team should do in a bubble a lot of times. And I'm not saying we as in us on this show. I mean we as a fan base. And I think I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but this Jag team is no pushover. They're not. I mean, the Jaguars as a franchise have such a negative connotation because of the last 2 decades that haven't been good. I mean, perennial top 5 picks in the draft. This team is solid. This team is very solid. So it did not surprise me as much as I thought it would when we pinned him on the 4-yard line and they drove the field. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was a first overall pick. They have stud wide receivers. I mean, not stud wide receivers, but top tier
They got
type
good ones.
talent at wide receiver. They have
Yeah,
a single running back and one that Tank Bigsby that I thought wasn't good last year, but apparently is a stud. And they have an okay offensive line. I mean, this team is not a pushover. So, I think I personally underestimated the quality that the Jaguars were putting on the field
yeah.
based on my bias from my historical bias of that franchise.
The Dolphins were 2 yards away from losing this football game. In the third quarter, Travis Etienne was about to rumble into the end zone for a 15-yard touchdown run. Javon Holland came in, punched the ball out, and the score at that time was 17-7. Travis Etienne goes into the end zone, makes it 24-7. It's my personal opinion. The Dolphins aren't coming back from that. So hey, you guys can disagree. You guys can disagree, and that's what we're here for. We're here to give our opinions. Dolphins go down 24-7 in that game. The way the momentum was swinging, the way the pendulum was swinging in that game, I don't see them coming back. So in my eyes, Javon Holland saved that game by punching that ball out. Kader Kohu recovers it in the end zone, and then Tua hits Tyreek for an 80-yard touchdown pass. That's a 14-point swing.
That is
In the
nuts.
third
What a
quarter.
2-play sequence.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. Absolutely nuts.
Exactly. So I saw Anthony and Steve over there shaking their heads. Anthony, I'm going to go to you first. You disagree with what I'm saying?
No, I agree. I 100% agree.
Okay.
I was shaking my head no
Me too.
because I was saying no, we don't come back. I don't think we do.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
It looked like you disagreed with me.
Oh, sorry. I agree.
Steve, did you disagree with me?
No, I agree. I do agree.
Fair enough.
Reluctantly.
Yeah.
I love how he's thinking about whether or not he wants to play devil's advocate. He's like,
That's hard. That's hard. It's a hard one to do.
Well,
Well-
okay, I'll play devil's advocate. I mean,
Okay.
I will say this. I agree with you, right? But if we need somebody to play devil's advocate here, I think
Yeah.
if you look at the talent and speed that we have, if any team is going to come back from that kind of deficit, there are very few in the league that can. And
Okay.
no matter how you feel about the Miami Dolphins offense, and no matter how you feel about Tua, no matter how you feel about Coach Mike McDaniel, this team has done it before. We have a track record of coming back in games. I mean, look at Ravens game, look at other games. I'm drawing a blank on, obviously, right? As I'm
Arizona.
live. Arizona, thank you.
Yeah.
And even a couple games last year where we were, the opposing team scored, we were down 2 touchdowns, we were down 2 touchdowns and a field goal, or whatever it was. And this team found a way to do it.
Yeah.
Now, that's when that was devil's advocate. Now I will say I agree with you, because I think in a lot of those games, the running game is what triggered the passing game, and our running game was non-existent in this one. Now,
Yeah.
our 2 offensive guards struggled. You can't question that. Our center was decent. Our tackles were actually surprisingly good in this game, given what they were going up against. And I think our running backs outside of A-Chain did absolutely nothing.
Jeff
so happy.
Yeah,
yeah, Jeff Wilson did. These guys have to talk about Jeff Wilson.
he hit a big run in the fourth quarter when
he did.
He had 24 yards.
But
I
they
definitely
all came with like 1-2 handoffs.
I want to hear more from Josh about HM because I saw some people on the internet, which we all know is the cesspool, say that HN didn't play well, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like our best player.
I mean, he didn't have rushing yards. I mean, I think he was at 49 rushing yards, but that is not how we game planned for him. The game plan for HN was use the run to set up his to set up the pass, and because we did not have a good third option at wide receiver, he was the de facto wide receiver 3 in a lot of these formations. And I think with his ability to catch and his speed and his quick twitch, he's the perfect player to have stepped in. It couldn't be Mostert. It wasn't. I mean, it could have been Jalen Wright, the rookie, but he was not available. So I think, I mean, what did he have? 7 receptions for 76 yards, and he ran the ball 12 times or something.
24 on the ground. It was a bad day on the ground. But I mean, Mostert was 6 for 9. So when you compare,
I started him in my fantasy league.
Tua looked better, in my opinion. He looks more nimble. He looks quicker. What'd you guys think about? Like you said, Tua kind of goes in every offseason with a goal of getting better in a certain area. So do you think he's improved in that area? Josh, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can question it. I mean, yeah, he took a sack. Okay, players are going to make a mistake. I mean, he's not perfect. He's human, right? And was it at the wrong time? Absolutely. But I think to your point and to the point that we made on our season analysis that, Tua picks a thing every offseason to get better at. Last season, he put on weight so he could be more durable. He played every single game. This is the lightest he's been since Alabama. And I think if you look at his college tape, Tua was not just a pocket passer. He was never going to be. He's not a Lamar Jackson, right?
Right.
I mean, that's fine. I don't want a Lamar Jackson. But him being more mobile, coupled with everything else that he already is from a pocket awareness standpoint, from a quick read, from an accuracy standpoint, it just rounds out the rough edges of his game. And I think you could see that on the 3 scrambles I think he had. I forgot what it was, but those were smooth. He slid a lot better. He got himself out of a lot of, on the 2 sacks that he took, he was able to shift his body so he didn't take the full brunt of the sack. I mean, a lot went into it. And I think I loved what I saw from Tua. I mean, he put up 300, what did he put up? 319 passing?
338.
330, whatever it was. Yeah. So, I mean, he's clearly doing something right.
Yeah. Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, it took 3 sacks, only 19 yards lost on those sacks. That's pretty incredible. I mean, that means he was playing towards the line of scrimmage or at least trying to get back to it. I thought Tua looked great. I mean, he was really one of the only people on offense I didn't have a complaint about. Not his fault that Durham forgot to put his hands on that day or something like that. I don't know. I mean, he was doing everything he could to put this team on his back. And at the end of the day, it ended up working out for us. But man, how annoyed would he have been if they ended up losing that game? Because he was doing everything right. He's finding guys in space. He's making the dime throws that we expect from him. He's running, which we don't see very often. So I thought Tua was near perfect in this one.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I like Tua. I like the fact that he's keeping his eyes down the field. That's actually, I believe, that's how he got sacked on the one where it was like a shoestring sack. He got kind of just tripped up and rolled over, but his eyes were downfield. He's not looking at the guy chasing him. So, to be honest, I kind of liked it. He's not losing focus where his receivers are. He's trying to still get his hips right, put some pressure behind that ball and get it downfield. I bet you another second or two that ball would have been out. Well, definitely 2 more seconds, ball would have been out. But even another half a second, I think that ball was coming, and that's why he wasn't going to get rid of it.
And the big thing with Tua losing weight was the fear was he was going to lose strength, at least from me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you could see on that, what was it, 50 yards worth of air time to
Yeah.
to Tyreek. I mean, he still has it.
Yeah. What I liked about watching Tua get sacked was how he fell as well. I didn't see his head bounce off. I didn't see him
Nope.
fall like a old person. I didn't see him fall like a child with no balance. Like, so literally sometimes when he fell, it's like, do you not know how to like lay down? So it was just
It was hard to watch.
yeah, it looked like it was a challenge for him to just get taken down to the ground, and now it's just like these jiu-jitsu practices. If I think he's still
He's
doing
still
them.
doing it. They said he's still doing it.
Yeah, it's what I seen a few months ago anyway. He was still doing it, but I think that they're really helping out, and I think he's just evolving as not even just a player, but as a human being. I think he's just getting better in all aspects of to his life. Really, he just seems like he's always on the right track, doing things the way things should be done in the community, giving out backpacks to kids going to school. Like, I like what Tua's doing. I don't think Tua's got a whole lot of things going wrong for him other than other teams' fans.